Welcome to a chilling tale that will make you think twice about home renovations. Today, we're diving into the supernatural world of celebrity ghost encounters, where fame and fortune can't protect you from the spirits that linger in the shadows. This isn't just another Hollywood story, it's a real-life haunting that left one of America's most beloved singers absolutely terrified of her own home. Kelly Clarkson, the powerhouse vocalist who won our hearts on American Idol and continues to light up our television screens, has experienced something that would make anyone's blood run cold. What started as a simple home improvement project in Texas turned into a spine-tingling encounter with the paranormal that she'll never forget. The workers doing renovations kept reporting the same disturbing sight, a little girl with long hair who shouldn't have been there. But here's where this story takes a dark turn that will send shivers down your spine. When Kelly and her friends investigated who this mysterious child could be, they discovered a truth so haunting that it changed everything. This isn't just a ghost story, it's a reminder that some houses hold on to their past, and sometimes that past includes the spirits of those who never got to grow up. Kelly Brianne Clarkson burst onto the music scene in 2002 when she became the first winner of American Idol. Born in Fort Worth, Texas, Kelly grew up in a small town called Burleson, where she discovered her incredible voice at an early age. She was just a regular Texas girl with big dreams, working various jobs to make ends meet before her life changed forever on that famous singing competition. After her American Idol victory, Kelly's career skyrocketed faster than anyone could have imagined. She released hit after hit, from Since You've Been Gone to Stronger, becoming one of the most successful artists to emerge from the show. Her powerful voice and down-to-earth personality made her a favorite among fans worldwide. Success brought her wealth, fame, and the ability to buy beautiful homes across the country. But with all her success, Kelly never forgot her Texas roots. She maintained properties in her home state, including the house where our ghost story takes place. Texas has always been special to Kelly. It's where she learned to sing, where her family lived, and where she felt most comfortable. Little did she know that one of her Texas properties would become the setting for an encounter that would shake her to her very core and make her question everything she thought she knew about the supernatural. The house in question was like many older properties scattered across Texas, charming, full of character, and carrying secrets from its past. Kelly had purchased this particular property as one of her homes, drawn to its unique architecture and the peaceful feeling it gave her when she first walked through its rooms. It seemed like the perfect place to escape from the pressures of fame and enjoy some quiet time away from the spotlight. Texas is known for its rich history, and many of the state's older homes have witnessed generations of families come and go. Some houses hold on to happy memories, children's laughter, family celebrations, and years of love and joy. But others, unfortunately, hold on to darker moments. Tragedy can leave an imprint on a place, especially when it involves the innocent loss of life. The energy of such events can linger for decades, sometimes even longer. What Kelly didn't know when she bought the house was that tragedy had indeed struck this property many years before she ever set foot inside. A young child had lost her life on this very land, leaving behind an energy that refused to move on. The little girl's presence had been quietly residing in the house, waiting patiently for someone to notice her. She wasn't malicious or angry, just a lost soul who didn't understand why she couldn't leave, why she was still tied to this earthly place, while everyone else had moved on without her. Kelly decided to renovate parts of the house to make it more comfortable and suited to her style. Like many homeowners, she hired a team of workers to handle the painting and various improvements throughout the property. These were experienced professionals who had worked on countless homes over the years. They'd seen it all, from structural problems to unexpected discoveries hidden behind walls. But nothing had prepared them for what they were about to encounter in Kelly's Texas house. The renovation team included several workers who primarily spoke Spanish, hard-working men who took pride in their craftsmanship. They arrived each morning ready to transform Kelly's house, bringing their tools, paint, and years of experience. At first, everything seemed normal. They set up their equipment, laid out drop cloths, and began the careful process of preparing the walls for fresh paint. The house was quiet, peaceful even, with sunlight streaming through the windows and the gentle sounds of their work echoing through the rooms. But then something strange started happening. The workers began noticing movement in their peripheral vision, quick glimpses of something that shouldn't be there. At first, they dismissed it as shadows playing tricks on their eyes, or perhaps fatigue from long days of physical labor. Construction work can be exhausting, and tired minds often see things that aren't really there. But as the days passed, these sightings became more frequent and impossible to ignore. It started with just brief glimpses, a flash of movement, a shadow that seemed too small to be an adult. The workers would turn their heads quickly, expecting to see a coworker or maybe a pet that had wandered into the room. But there was never anyone there, just empty space and the lingering feeling that they were being watched. The sensation was unsettling, making the hair on their arms stand up and their hearts beat a little faster. Then the sightings became clearer and more detailed. The workers began to see her more distinctly. A little girl with long, flowing hair that seemed to move even when there was no breeze in the room. She appeared to be around 8 or 9 years old, wearing clothes that looked old-fashioned, not quite fitting with modern times. Her presence was unmistakable, yet somehow she seemed translucent, as if she existed in a world that overlapped with theirs, but wasn't quite the same. The little girl didn't seem to notice the workers at first. She would simply move through the rooms, walking with the carefree manner of a child at play. Sometimes she would stop and seem to examine their work, tilting her head with curiosity as she watched them paint the walls. Other times, she would appear to be playing games only she could understand, moving through the house as if it were still her home, as if she belonged there more than anyone else ever could. As the days passed, the workers became increasingly uncomfortable with the little girl's presence. She wasn't threatening or scary in an obvious way, but there was something deeply unsettling about a child being in a construction zone where she could get hurt. Fresh paint contains chemicals that can be harmful if touched or inhaled. Sharp tools and equipment pose dangers that any responsible adult would want to keep children away from. But this little girl seemed oblivious to these risks. The workers tried to shoo her away gently, speaking to her in Spanish and then in broken English, telling her it wasn't safe for her to be there. They would point toward the exits, gesturing for her to leave the room so they could continue their work safely. But she never responded to their words or gestures. She would simply continue with whatever she was doing, as if she couldn't hear them or didn't understand that they were talking to her. What made the situation even more disturbing was the way she would appear and disappear. One moment she would be standing right there in the room with them, clear as day, and the next moment she would simply be gone. Not gone like a child who had run away or hidden behind furniture, gone like she had never been there at all. The workers would blink, and she would vanish, leaving them questioning their own eyesight and sanity. Growing increasingly frustrated and concerned, the workers decided they needed to communicate with someone who could help them handle this situation. Since they had limited English skills and Kelly wasn't always present at the house during the renovation work, they reached out to Kelly's friend, who was helping coordinate the project. This friend served as a translator and liaison, making sure the work was progressing smoothly and addressing any issues that came up. When the workers finally managed to explain their problem, their message was both simple and chilling. Through the friend who could translate, they said, "Can you please tell the little girl to stop coming in? We're afraid she's going to touch the paint." Their concern was genuine and practical. Wet paint can be dangerous for children, and they didn't want anyone to get hurt on their watch. They were responsible workers who took safety seriously, and having an unsupervised child in their work area was completely unacceptable. Kelly's friend was confused by this request. There were no children living in the house or expected to be there during the renovation. Kelly didn't have young children at the time, and the property was supposed to be empty except for the workers during their scheduled hours. The friend asked for clarification, thinking perhaps there had been some misunderstanding or miscommunication about who was supposed to have access to the house during the renovation period. The workers insisted that they were seeing a little girl regularly, and they provided specific details that made everyone involved realize this wasn't a simple case of mistaken identity. They described her as having long hair that flowed down her back, and they demonstrated with their hands how her hair moved as she walked through the rooms. The workers were adamant that this wasn't their imagination. They had all seen her, multiple times, in different rooms of the house. "Yeah, the little girl with the long hair," they repeated, making sure their message was clear. They described how she would walk through their work area, seemingly unaware of the wet paint and dangerous equipment around her. Sometimes, she would appear to reach toward freshly painted walls, which terrified the workers because they knew the paint could harm her delicate skin. They felt responsible for her safety, even though they couldn't understand why she was there or how she kept getting into the house. Kelly's friend relayed this information back to her, expecting that there would be a simple explanation. Perhaps a neighbor's child had been wandering over, or maybe someone had forgotten to mention that a young relative might be visiting. But Kelly's response was immediate and definitive. There was no child supposed to be in that house. No little girl lived there. No one had permission to bring children to the property, and certainly no one had long hair matching the worker's description. What happened next would haunt Kelly for years to come. Determined to get to the bottom of this mystery, Kelly and her friend began investigating the history of their property. They searched through public records, talked to neighbors who had lived in the area for decades, and pieced together the story of what had happened on this land long before Kelly ever owned it. What they discovered was far more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. The truth was heartbreaking and chilling. Years ago, a little girl had indeed lived on this property. She had played in these same rooms, run through these same hallways, and called this place home. But her story had a tragic ending that explained everything the workers had been experiencing. This little girl had died on the property, her young life cut short in a way that was both sudden and devastating. The details of how she died weren't entirely clear from the records they found, but the fact remained that a child had lost her life in this very place. Her death had been unexpected, the kind of tragedy that leaves families shattered and communities mourning. But what made this discovery even more unsettling was the realization that the little girl's spirit had never left. She was still there, still playing in the house that had once been her home, unaware that decades had passed since her death. When Kelly learned the truth about the little girl, her entire relationship with the house changed in an instant. The property that had once felt like a peaceful retreat suddenly became a place of fear and uncertainty. Kelly admitted later that she was completely terrified of her own house after learning about the tragic history. The thought of a child's spirit wandering through the rooms where she was supposed to feel safe and comfortable was overwhelming. Even though Kelly had never seen the little girl herself, knowing that the workers had witnessed her presence multiple times made the situation feel incredibly real and immediate. Kelly found herself constantly looking over her shoulder, wondering if the little girl was there watching her. Every shadow seemed suspicious, every small sound made her heart race, and the peaceful atmosphere she had once loved about the house was completely gone. Kelly later shared that she probably looked crazy to anyone who might have observed her during this time. She would talk out loud to the empty rooms, trying to communicate with the little girl's spirit. "I'm cool if you're here. If you're cool that I'm here," she would say, hoping to establish some kind of peaceful coexistence with the supernatural presence. Kelly didn't want to force the spirit away, but she also needed to feel comfortable in her own home. Even after Kelly learned about the house's tragic history, the renovation work had to continue, and the workers still had to deal with the little girl's presence on a daily basis. Their experiences became even more unsettling now that everyone involved understood who they were seeing. The little girl wasn't just a random child who had wandered into their work area. She was a spirit who had been tied to this house for decades. The workers reported that the little girl seemed completely unaware of the passage of time. She acted like any normal child would, curious about the changes being made to her home and interested in the activities happening around her. Sometimes she would stand very close to them while they worked, watching intently as they applied fresh coats of paint to walls that had probably been painted many times since her death. Her innocent curiosity made the situation even more heartbreaking. There were moments when the workers would feel a sudden drop in temperature in rooms where the little girl appeared, even on warm Texas days when the rest of the house felt comfortable. They would notice that their tools seemed to move slightly when they weren't looking, not in a malicious way, but as if curious hands had touched them. The little girl's presence became a constant part of their workday, something they had to factor into their schedule and mental preparation for each day at the job site. The experience with the little girl's spirit left a permanent impression on everyone involved. Kelly found that she couldn't shake the feeling of unease whenever she was in that house, even after the renovations were completed and the workers had moved on to other projects. The knowledge that a child's spirit was still trapped there, still playing in rooms that had once been her world, was heartbreaking and disturbing at the same time. Kelly began to understand that some houses hold on to their past in ways that we don't fully comprehend. The little girl's energy had somehow remained connected to the property, creating a bridge between the world of the living and whatever comes after death. For decades, she had been alone in that house, unseen and unacknowledged by the families who had lived there after her passing. The construction workers were possibly the first people in years to actually notice her presence and recognize that she was there. This experience changed Kelly's perspective on the supernatural forever. Before this encounter, she might have been skeptical about ghost stories and paranormal claims, but having multiple witnesses describe the same little girl in such specific detail, and then discovering the tragic history that explained her presence, made it impossible to dismiss what had happened as coincidence or imagination. The little girl was real, her story was real, and her continued presence in that house was undeniably real. To this day, Kelly has never revealed what ultimately happened with the house, or whether the little girl's spirit is still there. The renovation was completed, but the supernatural presence that the workers encountered so clearly remains a mystery. Did the little girl eventually find peace and move on to whatever comes after death? Or is she still there, still playing in the rooms of her childhood home, still unaware that the world has moved on without her? Some people believe that spirits remain tied to places where they experienced strong emotions or traumatic events. The little girl's attachment to the house might be so strong that she literally cannot leave, no matter how many years pass or how many different families live there. Her innocent spirit might be trapped in a kind of loop, reliving her childhood in the only place she ever knew as home, waiting for someone to help her understand what has happened to her. Others think that perhaps the renovation work itself stirred up supernatural energy that had been dormant for years. Construction and major changes to a property can sometimes awaken spirits who have been resting quietly, bringing them back to active presence in the physical world. The workers' arrival and the disruption of the house's normal quiet state might have given the little girl new energy to manifest and make herself known to the living world once again. Kelly Clarkson's experience serves as a chilling reminder that we never really know the full history of the places we call home. Houses that seem perfectly normal and welcoming might be carrying secrets from their past that only reveal themselves under certain circumstances. The little girl in Kelly's Texas house had been there all along, quietly existing in a space between worlds, until the right conditions allowed her to be seen and acknowledged by the living. For anyone who has ever felt an unexplained presence in their home, heard footsteps where no one should be walking, or glimpsed movement in their peripheral vision, Kelly's story offers both validation and a warning. These experiences might not be imagination or tricks of tired minds. They might be real encounters with spirits who are still tied to the places they once knew in life. The little girl's story reminds us that death doesn't always mean departure, and some souls remain connected to the physical world long after their bodies have gone. The next time you're in an old house and feel like someone is watching you, or you catch a glimpse of movement that shouldn't be there, remember Kelly's story. Remember the little girl with long hair who still walks through the rooms of a house in Texas, and ask yourself, are you truly alone, or is someone from the past sharing that space with you, just beyond the edge of what we can normally see and understand? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want more, please subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up. It only takes a second to do, and it's free, but greatly helps the channel. Good night.